Now, gather round children, for it is grand story time. Cue visuals. In the beginning, there was nothing. The nothingest nothing that has ever not existed. The nothing just kinda sat about and unexisted, not bothered by any such thing as existence or reality. There may have been some bits of heat energy floating about, but that shit doesn't count. Eventually, however, this frigid, lonely expanse of plot hole level nothing got sick of being nothing and decided to get a job. So all the energy bits sucked themselves into a ball smaller than the level of progress made since I was put on this over-glorified Porto Potty lighthouse. Then, the energy exploded with the force of something that you'd compare giant fucking explosions to. There has never been, and never will be, an explosion as big as this one. It was so big that it's literally still happening right now.
Wait, what caused the heat to compress and explode like that?
I don't fucking know. Dark matter, plane walkers, precursors, a bunch of geeks with nothing better to do making a badass fictional universe for the purpose of inevitably selling inordinately expensive plastic miniatures? It could have been anything. So after the mega-explosion, atoms started to take form from the massive amounts of energy that floated around, and these atoms started recombining, collapsing, and forming themselves into elements, molecules and compounds. These substances, unlike energy, had mass and decided to get closer to each other because now this new thing called gravity applied to them, because that's just what fucking happened. Fuck this boring chemic shit, let's get to the good stuff. As matter formed into big lumps, these lumps became celestial formations. Stars, planets, nebulas, asteroids, comets. Eventually, due to conservation of energy and some weird chemical reactions, life eventually formed on these lumps of space crap. Supposedly, the first life that came about was a race of beings that became known as the Old Ones. The reason for this nickname is that they were the ultimate rulers of reality and evolution, and they were really fucking old, go figure. These beings are the shitty, neglectful grandparents of all that is life. They evolved so damn hard that they eventually became spiritual entities, discovering the so-called realm of souls. As a side note, as you can see, they looked something like big, fat amphibians before they evolved into beings of pure power. So that's a lot of progress for a bunch of giant hyper-intelligent toadmen. Come to think of it, that sounds a lot like the Administratum.
Incomprehensibly powerful for almost no reason.
Toadman, you rose-tinted typewriter with a fucking mouth. Anyway, they then decided to create other species for shits and giggles. Some said that they created all life after themselves, but I'm not so sure on that one. Perhaps they helped push the boat out, but they certainly didn't fucking build it.
So these old ones didn't create humanity?
That's what I just said, you hollow-headed ninny. Most life evolved in one way or another, and anyone who doesn't accept that is probably really drunk.
Lorgar's going to have fun with this.
Continuing on. Next to arrive were a bunch of floozy fucking milksops that you would recognize as the Eldar. Due to the fact that, early in their evolution, they reproduced like space rabbits, they actually ended up becoming the dominant race in the galaxy. The Old Ones were more like spread-out singularities of imbalanced min-max hanging around here and there. But neither race really cared for each other, so they coexisted peacefully, one spreading like a pointy-eared plague, while the other pooped out orangutans, more frogmen, and races with unpronounceable names. But then came the Necrontyr.
Wait. That sounds familiar.
Strap yourselves to something, because here comes the most obvious plot twist of the fucking century. The Necrontyr were salty assholes because they had evolved on a shitty, radiation-blasted planet. They built underground cities that seriously looked like depressing tombs because their life sucked so much that they would rather wait out their own death than do much else. After years of being subservient to their animosity, like an entire race of entitled middle-aged people, they became envious of both the Old Ones' incredible powers and the Eldar's massive galaxy-spanning girth. Of course, they were little more than an irritating bunch of self-pitying tearjerkers to such powerful races. Eventually, however, the spite of the Necrontyr became so mighty that they started hating all life in the galaxy, even themselves, and decided to start murdering literally everything. However, they soon realized that manually making sure every single grass straw on a planet was dead was really fucking tedious, so they started snooping around for something to make into a super weapon. That led to them finding a weird bunch of gas orbiting the super radioactive star that had turned their planet into the empire of atomic bombia. They suddenly noticed that the gas was feeding on the very energy of the star. It turned out that the gas was alive, but not in the same sense as other life forms. It had evolved in a whole different way, and was technically even older than the old ones. Of course, all it actually did was eat radiation and, be what is basically celestial fart gas. But of course, these assy Necrondards just had to fuck with this peaceful, sun-eating anomaly. They proceeded to collect as many of these weird sentient gas clouds as they could find and forged bodies of living metal for them, because what isn't that the first idea that comes to your mind as well? They used the gas's own radiation-eating abilities to lure the dormant consciousnesses of them into the bodies they had made via the use of a bridge of starlight, or some pretentious shit like that. So after eons of peacefully orbiting stars and eating radiation, these beings which knew no other need than to drift around and consume were suddenly given incredibly powerful physical forms and hypercomputerized synthetic brains to give them all the knowledge the Necrondards had collectively acquired. As you can guess, this went swimmingly for everyone involved.
Wait, I think I can guess who these guys are now.
Congratulations.
These gas entities. They became the Catan, and the Necrons here became the Necrons?
Give this man a PhD because that's some serious brain power for a giant armored potato chip. But yes, these beings, in their fancy new bodies, with their big new brains, were named the Catan by the Necrontyr, and were worshipped as gods. The Catan weren't nice though. They absorbed all the living metal the Necrontyr had amassed, and used it to transform this massive species of psychopaths into a race of living, murderous machines who mindlessly served them. They also ate most of the Necrontyr's souls while they were at it, because they were ungrateful assholes like that. That's also when these mounds of fluid dickery discovered that souls were far more appealing than space radiation. I guess souls have more nutrition or something. So the Catan started looking back through the extensive memories of the Necrontyr, now renamed Necrons for some reason, and saw that the old ones had the biggest, tastiest souls of them all, and decided that it would be a good idea to eat them. When the Catan came gnawing at the old one's front door, the old ones of course decided to punch the shit out of them with their minds, like all grandparents do. But that's when they noticed that their psychic powers were useless against both them and the Necrons, because they had no souls of their own. This started a massive galaxy-wide massacre of the old ones that went so far that they nearly became extinct. I guess you could say that the old ones got their life towed away from them.
Seriously though, that's awful.
Well, I guess the Necrons here got what they wanted in the end.
Not quite. See, some of the old ones survived, and they decided that the only way to stop this imminent galactic doom is to fuck up in an equally as awful manner as the Necrontyr. Thus, they created a new race, one which could fight the soulless Necrons for them. A race with strange reality-bending powers fueled by crowd mentality instead of souls. A race that knew and desired only war and destruction. A race that could weaponize anything and was almost impossible to kill. A race that became known then as the Krorks, or, as we know them today, the Orcs, because shortening names is a thing.
What?
Greenskins?
There's a plot twist you didn't see coming. The Orcs were actually important all along. So yeah, while the Krorks were fighting the Necrons, the Eldar were shitting their collective frilly panties because they knew that they were next on the menu. So they decided to salvage as much of the old one's tech as they could and fuse it with their own. Believe it or not, the Webway was actually a creation of the old ones, but the Eldar nicked off with the designs, like the thieving bastards they are. That said, by combining Webway technology and the power of the Realm of Souls, they created a new type of material to combat the living metal of the Necrons called Wraithbone. The Wraith constructs were sent into battle alongside the Krorks to fight back the Necrons. Turns out that while the Catan were immune to psychic powers, it seemed as they couldn't handle being Wraithboned.
From the moment I heard the name come up, I knew you'd say that.
Why aren't you the smartest kid on the fucking block?
Of course I am.
No wonder you were bullied by your brothers.
No, that's just uncalled for.
Anyway, Just when things started to go down the drain for the Cat 10, things got even worse for them, as one particular asshole among them, known as the Deceiver, good friends with the Eldar Laughing God, brought together the most edgy Cat 10 he could possibly find, creatures with names that only the most lonely of people could come up with, such as the Nightbringer, the Void Dragon, and the Outsider. The Deceiver then said to his fellow celestial gas canisters,
All the other Cat 10 are weak and being killed off. We should eat them before they die so their powers won't be wasted.
Thus, the Cat 10 started infighting, and began to eat each other, while also being destroyed by the Krorks and the Eldar, because that is clearly what an intelligent life form would do. So much destruction was caused in this, the First Great War, that the Cat 10 suddenly realized they were expending more energy than they were absorbing, and would run out of power if they kept this up. All according to plan, Shagorath said as he laughed away the night with the Deceiver.
Killing all of your allies in the middle of a giant war was apparently a bad idea. Who would have fucking thought?
Thus, they simply decided to retreat back to the Tomb Worlds with their Necron armies, to wait for the universe to become plump, juicy and unprepared again.
It would seem that at some point during that time, the Necrons must have regained some consciousness and taken revenge against the Catan for screwing them over.
So I have been led to believe.
Although, to be honest, it kind of sounds like they deserved what happened to them. That's what you get for being a filthy Xeno, after all.
So with that giant clusterfuck out of the way, you'd think things would get better. But nope. This giant war had left the universe a complete fucking mess. The old ones were near extinct. The Eldar were still scared shitless, and worst of all, the Krorks, with no Necrons left to fight, turned on their creators since the old ones had forgotten to install a fucking off switch. Fortunately, they could be held at bay due to having no technology of their own. That said, something worse than Necrons was on the horizon. You see, all the souls who were eaten, and all those who died in the battles created a major imbalance in the realm of souls. This imbalance within the outer realm corrupted and twisted it with all the ill will, fears, and general lack of common fucking decency that life now collectively experienced. Nightmarish spiritual entities started to emerge from the darkness of the realm, like a giant galactic panic attack. It was at this point that the first demons emerged, and the realm of souls was given a new name.
The warp! That all makes sense.
Yup. Not only did that war fuck up the universe, but it fucked up the outer realms of the universe too. Compared to that war, this 10,000-year-old conflict that started when fucking Horus decided to be a bad boy is barely a blip on the radar. Puts things into context, doesn't it?
I suddenly feel small, and I don't know how to feel about that.
You'll get used to it. Besides, you're shorter than most of your brothers anyhow.
That's entirely my choice, and you know it.
But where were we, humanity, during all of this?
We were all busy evolving from primates into tribal cavemen, picking our noses, and fornicating in the ways that primitive beings do. But not for long. You see, warp storms caused by this huge war fucked the galaxy over. And additionally, demonic predators of the warp finished off most, if not all, of the remaining old ones. It's like some complete asswipe suddenly invaded an old folks' home, demolished all their belongings, and subjected all old people to summary executions. And then another completely unrelated group came along and did the exact same thing all over again. The Eldar, realizing their own incredible fragility, decided fuck it. Literally. And so they did. Constantly. So much so that they repopulated the galaxy again, became the dominant species once more, and ruined their own reproductive cycle to the point of near non-functionality. I mean, I know you'll lose it if you don't use it, but if you use it fucking constantly, it's gonna get worn out and shrivel up. It's at this point that the idiot says what species emerged.
The what?
I am absolutely hilarious, even after all these millennia.
Oh,
I still don't get it.
So, actual humans finally started coming forth out of the evolutionary fuckfest at this point, and a handful of them gained psychic powers similar to that of other species carrying souls around. These early day psychers called themselves shamans, and they were totally super badass, guiding humanity by learning about the ways of nature and the universe's history, through the power of the realm of souls and probably some shrooms. However, when the doddering demon douches accompanied with an entire gang of horribly unnecessary creatures like enslavers and psychnoia started to show up, the shamans started to be horribly killed off in spasmtastic manners. So of course, the shamans decided they needed to put their heads together to solve the problem. So they did. Again, literally. by combining their very souls, psychic powers, knowledge, and strength through ritualistic mass suicide. They achieved in the blink of an eye something that had taken the old ones an entire species worth of evolution to do. They all became a single living being of spiritual energy and power. In short, they created me.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
About a year after the whole mega evolution by suicide thing, I was born to regular human parents. The shamans that killed themselves had combined to become one giant soul, and entered my mother while she was still pregnant. This was 50,000 years ago. During my first years of life, I was a powerful but reckless young man. At that point in time, most of my life consisted of crushing my enemies, driving them before me and hearing the lamentation of a woman. I was honestly kind of an asshole, a handsome, muscle-bound asshole. However, as time went by I felt more and more of my past lives impose upon me, revealing who I truly was. Ancient wisdom, immense power, and a strong sense of right filled my body to the brim. I was no longer who I used to be. I was now a handsome, muscle-bound godlike being who could use magic. I was the greatest thing since myself before the transformation. After this incredible power boost, I started roaming around Terra, or Earth, as it was called at the time, like a ghost. I watched from the shadows as mankind grew, waiting, influencing, and sometimes scaring small children. Fast forward a couple of millennia. It was the year M25, and the age of strife had come. Humans had spread all across the galaxy, and all was fine and dandy. But suddenly, as if some idiot repeatedly rammed his head against the shitstorm button, a whole cockload of psychers suddenly emerged on every given world. As you well know, psychers use the warp to do magic and shit, but untrained psychers are pretty bad at it and usually attract warp predators when doing so. First it seemed fine. A lot of people's initial reaction was, hey, wizards are real, neat. But then bam, demons all across the planet, good fucking job. The only planets that survived this fate were those that performed witch hunts and brutally murdered psychers wherever they popped up. You can imagine how popular murder cult religions were at the time. To serve as the puss icing on this rot cake, warp storms started fucking up the galaxy immensely again. As mankind depended on the warp to make it from planet to planet, every human colony was isolated from one another, as going through the warp during a warp storm is incredibly stupid. This was especially awful in Terra's case, as Terra depended on other planets for its groceries and toilet paper. This left the people of Terra in a severe state of famine and itchy-ass clefts. Terra soon became naught but a blasted desert, a shadow of its former self. Here, a bunch of cartoon villains called techno-barbarians roamed free and fought one another for territory. As Terra was utterly fucked up beyond all recognition, I decided to finally reveal myself to mankind, since screaming at it from the sidelines clearly didn't fucking work. So I picked up some hardy boys, augmented them massively, and gave them the name Thunder Warriors, the greatest warriors on Terra. For the record, these fellows were the predecessors to the Space Marines. Suffice it to say that they was it because I'm just that good.
Right, so now I've heard all about your biography. But what happened to the rest of the universe between now and then?
If you really want to hear the boring parts, fine. To make a long story slightly less long. While Earth was in its infancy, and I was protecting it from all the serial killers outside, the Eldar fucked up. Again, literally. And yes, I will reuse this joke as often as I like, because I'm the motherfucking Emperor, and I am allowed to do that. I'm hilarious. This was the point in time in which the Eldar managed to murder fuck the Chaos God Slaanesh into existence, which was the final coffin, to hit the nail into the hammer for any sense the realm of souls once had. From that point on, it was a technicolor hellscape of sexual fluids and jumbled thoughts. Slaanesh managed to agitate the other Chaos Gods into going full fuck force, as they hadn't done anything worth noting since the medieval ages, when they were born. This started an instant mass production of demon hookers and punch meat monsters. This incredibly violent space birth even managed to rupture the galaxy's privates, which created the gaping, expansive warp hole in the center of the galaxy that is nowadays known as the Eye of Terror, because the dick demons clearly needed a bigger hole to poke into. As Slaanesh was born and the Eye of Terror was formed, most every Eldar in the galaxy died as a result of this galactical miscarriage. The only ones lucky enough to survive were those far away from the Eldar homeworlds. In addition, Slaanesh also did to the Eldar what the C'tan did to the Necrontyr, making it so Slaanesh automatically receives all Eldar's souls upon their death, unless they use protection. This totally proves that I'm the only god-like entity in the universe that didn't fuck things up for its own people. Not that you should call me a god, or anything, I'm just saying—
And we are infinitely thankful for that, my lord.
You better damn well be. Anyway, things do take a small upturn here. The good news was that since the galaxy was finally out of its bipolar pregnancy stage, the Eye of Terror blew away all the warp storms that had fucked up the galaxy, making space travel possible again. Thus, with the Eldar out of the way, the universe pretty much empty of all worthy life, and the Age of Strife over, I took humanity and decided it was time to conquer the stars, reuniting the human planets that had been isolated and lost during the Age of Strife with the newly formed Imperium of Man. And it went well at first. Everyone was holly jolly and loved me. I began preparing for the Great Crusade, and everyone had a good time. At this point, I also made the Primarchs my very own children that would help me lead mankind to total galactic domination. But then, those giant material ball sacks known as the Chaos Gods scattered all across the galaxy, shitting and giggling as they went. So with that, I had to go out and relocate all my sons once more, which was a pain in the side. After I had done that, however, and the Great Crusade was at full go, everyone was happy again, except the 100 or 200 planets we annihilated. But as you know, fucking Horus's massive temper tantrum happened right after that. The rebellion happened, I was put on this throne, most of my sons either disappeared or died, the entire Imperium shat its united long johns, that stupid age of apostasy happened, and those fucking tyrants apparently showed up. Oh, and those Tau creatures too, if that is worth mentioning.
It's not!
And somewhere in the interim, the Eldar mostly split into two factions, one which wants their species to become great again, as if that will ever happen, and one which simply doesn't care about anything other than being disturbing little sweat goblins. And that's the how and why of humanity, the galaxy, and the gloomy fuckfest we're all invited to.